Hello, everyone. Welcome along to the Billy Slater Podcast. Let's bring in the man, the myth, the legend. Here he is, the great man, Billy Slater. Hello, Bill.
How are you, Mark?
Mate, very well. Gee, bit of carnage on the weekend with all these injuries, mate, and a few people questioning whether teams can go on and challenge for the Premiership. I was out at Allianz Stadium yesterday, and poor old Trent Robinson, he'd be pulling his hair out with some of these injuries.
Yeah, I was out there as well, and the whole weekend. They say a week is a long time in rugby league, and that's certainly the case this week. People were talking about Premiership contenders and who's the healthiest, and then all of a sudden a week later, the Roosters, they've had some cruel news over the last 24 hours, and some drastic times at the Roosters at the minute.
When we saw Sam Walker go down in that northern in-goal area, you just knew something was wrong, didn't you? Because you could see on his face that he was visibly distressed, and it's now been confirmed that it's an ACL. So that's not only his season, it's the start of next season as well.
Yeah, it's 9 months. It'll be the majority of next season, I would imagine. So it's tough. Firstly, and I say this a lot, I really feel for the player. I know we'll talk a lot about the Roosters and what it means to their premiership chances, but the player puts in so much. It's their life. And you look at Sam Walker, this has been his life, his whole life. He's played rugby league since he was a little boy up in Ipswich in Queensland, and he's worked so hard over the last 3 or 4 years to put himself in a position to challenge for a premiership in a really good side. And now that's been taken away from him, out of his control, out of anyone's control. And when someone goes down without any contact, it's not a good sign, and especially when they grab their knee. He'd already had his knee strapped. I do remember last year that he had a partial tear to his ACL. I don't know if it's the same leg, but he did have a partial tear to his ACL that he avoided surgery from last year. Whether that has come back and that's where the injury occurred, I'm not too sure, but it's cruel news for the young man.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it is, Bill, because that's the knee that was heavily strapped in the first place. So anyway, we'll wait for some more news from the Roosters today. The other one was Brandon Smith. Now, we talk about Sam Walker going down without contact, but on this occasion there was contact. That alleged hip drop tackle from Elliott Whitehead, who attempted to go and apologise after the game, but Trent Robinson stepped in and said, he doesn't want a bar of it. We'll hear from Trent in a second, but what did you make of that tackle and the injury to Brandon Smith?
Well, to be fair on Elliott Whitehead, Brandon Smith already had sustained the injury in the first half. That was earlier in the game where Brandon Smith sustained the injury. He actually strapped it up and kept playing, but he was visibly injured throughout that whole game. He was hobbling along, had that knee heavily strapped, and we all assumed it was an MCL, which is the inside of the knee. You can actually play through a little bit of pain of that inside ligament injured, but the ACL, no one expected it to be the ACL. Even when he went down after the Elliott Whitehead tackle and he went off the field, we all thought that it was an MCL, which is less serious. It's still very painful, but less serious than an ACL. So when the news came through this morning that Brandon Smith had sustained a ruptured ACL injury, that was quite a shock to me. Look, it is very, very unfortunate, and I look at the tackle, and initially I actually didn't think that Elliott Whitehead did a whole lot wrong. Look, you can find some areas where he didn't have to twist his body and all that sort of stuff, but he actually went over the top of Brandon Smith. It wasn't as if he was holding on and twisted his body and used his body weight to pull him down. It was like nearly a missed tackle from Elliott Whitehead. So I do feel for him in a certain degree. I think the argument between Elliott Whitehead and Trent Robinson comes off the back of Elliott Whitehead having previous record in this area of the game. Trent Robinson is very aware of that. He even took it back to back in the Super League days when he was at the Catalans and Elliott Whitehead was playing over in England. So I think that's where it stemmed from, that conversation. But it's another cruel blow for the Roosters, isn't it?
It certainly is. This is what Trent Robinson had to say after the game.
He came up and Just wanted to ask how Brandon was, and I just sort of said it's too many times. The hip drop's been pretty common in his game for a long time, and I just said it's too many times. It's cost us a player. That was it. He said it was an accident, and I just said, look, you've done it too many times.
And emotions are running high, Billy, after a game where Trent Robinson's lost Victor, he's lost Sam Walker, he's lost Brandon Smith. So, I'm assuming that down in the tunnel where everything's going on, he sees Elliott Whitehead, he's probably disappointed. Not that I'm making excuses, but, it is what it is. I don't think we need to blow it out of proportion, do we?
No, to be honest, I think both parties have handled it really well.
Yeah.
Elliott Whitehead has... I believe, Elliott, that it was an accident. It was a total accident in what's happened. And he's gone up to Brandon after the game and expressed his sorry towards it. He apologised for the fact that Brandon went off the field in the amount of discomfort. You could actually see straight away the concern Elliott Whitehead had for Brandon Smith. And then I can understand Trent Robinson's point of view as well. They're a week away from the semi-finals, and one of his key position players has just got taken off the field with a knee injury, has now sustained an ACL injury. So, I think he handled it with a lot of calm and a lot of thought, and didn't go over the top. These conversations happen all the time. I think both parties have handled it really well.
Just on the Roosters, we'll wait for some more news on Victor, but we are told it's more than likely just an AC injury in the shoulder. But a lot of the talk at the moment is around the Roosters' Premiership credentials and whether or not they can go on and challenge for the Provan Summons Trophy. In your expert opinion, Billy, how much does this hurt these injuries, the Roosters?
I've said a number of times on this podcast last week, I said you need three things to go your way this time of the year. You need ladder position, you need health, and you need to be playing your best football. The Roosters last week, they had all three. Now they've only got two of the three. So they lose two key position players in Brandon Smith and Sam Walker. Do they have the quality in their squad to replace them and continue the run? I still feel they do. The key is Victor Radley. I think if Victor Radley can come back, I'd be playing him through the middle of the field and using his ball-playing ability. That will take a lot of pressure off whoever jumps in the halves with Luke Keary. Luke Keary has to step up. There's no doubt about that, and he's got the ability to do that. But whether you play Joey Manu in the 6, you play Sandon Smith in that halves position, whichever way they go, I think if Victor Radley is in the middle of the field, he'll take a whole heap of pressure off that person who's jumping in that role for the first time this year. They have got the quality to overcome these injuries, but it's drastic times. You might need drastic measures. You might need to move Joey Manu. I'm a big fan of Joey Manu. I think he's a great player, and he showed his quality towards the end of the game. Like he created a few opportunities for the Roosters yesterday, and if he moves, if they've got that coverage in the outside backs and they can move Joey Manu in a little bit closer, I wouldn't be against that idea.
Well, you talk about coverage in the outside backs. It might open the door for this Mark Nwangani Tawazi, who's made the move over from Rugby. I noticed he was in the extended squad yesterday, so that might be another option that Trent Robinson's toying with as well, Bill.
And has played a couple of games in the New South Wales Cup since coming back from the Sevens tournament. So he's a guy that I don't know a whole heap about, but looks a real athletic type. And again, drastic times might need drastic measures. And, Trent Robinson has spoken about there's a possibility. He was in the extended, he said that, in the extended squad this week. So I don't know where Joseph Suoli'i is as well. He's another guy that sustained an injury last week, so hopefully he's not too far away. I heard it was nerve damage coming through his shoulder, so if that can settle down, that will give a bit of coverage in the outside backs to push Joey Manu in. Sandon Smith's a wonderful player as well, so he's another great option to leave Joey Manu out in the centres and just bring Sandon Smith in. So there is a number of players there. The one thing with Sandon Smith is, given Brandon Smith's gone down as well, I don't think Connor Watson can play 80 minutes at dummy half. So you might need Sandon Smith off the bench as coverage for anyone in the halves, or play that dummy half role, which he has done in the past. So that might push the decision towards Joey Manu coming into that 6 jersey.
All right, and just before we move on to the other games, Bill, we should congratulate everybody that turned out yesterday, including our emergency service personnel, because there was all the demonstrations from the police out on Driver Avenue. We had everybody from the paramedics, the fireys, surf, life-saving. They were all there, and this was the brainchild of Nick Politis, the Roosters chairman. The Roosters jumped on board, the Canberra Raiders jumped on board, the NRL supported it as well, and how special was it too to see Inspector Amy Scott jump out of the helicopter with the game ball. We all know what she did at Bondi Westfield to bring down that knife-wielding man. I thought it was a really special day, mate. What say you?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was great. And, we talk about the courage that our rugby league players have to take the field and go after the game and all that sort of stuff. Well, our first responders in all different fields, whether it's the police, the fireys, the ambulance, the paramedics, they're the ones, looking after us, whether it's at our security, whether it's, our health. They're on the scene first, and it was great to see Amy present the game ball out of the helicopter, and just a great acknowledgement for all men and women who are in those first response positions that have that courage that our rugby league players have. And there's a great connection between whether it's police, army, and sport. There was I think it was the fireys and the police played the game before. Yep. The Raiders and the Roosters. So, it was just a really good acknowledgement and a good connection to celebrate what they do for us.
They sent some rugby league fans out there for the demonstration from the Public Order Riot Squad and the Dog Squad. Geez, you wouldn't want to muck around with those German Shepherds. They were pretty quick, Bill.
And they had some police and people who were involved in the riot squad dressed up as civilians, and there was actually a few with some rugby league jerseys on, and they were the ones that were getting attacked by the police dogs and all that sort of stuff. They had the big guards on their arm, and there was one in a Newcastle Knights jersey with number 7 on the back, and the dogs were paying extra attention to that person. I don't know why. They've got a good sense of who the troublemakers are, but it was a great demonstration, and just another part of the day.
Good on them, and a great idea, and it'll be an annual event, so well done to all involved. Let's whip through the games. We'll go all the way back to Thursday night. Melbourne Storm had the luxury of resting the 11 players. The Cowboys got the cash, 38 points to 30, Bill, but gee whiz, defensively, I think they missed something like 28 tackles in the first half.
Yeah, I was really proud of the young Melbourne Storm team, and they weren't without their stars. They still had Ryan Pappenhausen and Cameron Munster, who I thought was really involved. Pappenhausen went off pretty early with a knee injury. Hopefully that's not too bad, and he'll be back in the next couple of weeks. But they did a really good job. Tyron Wishart was probably the best player on the field, and he's just continually growing his stature in the game and his position in this Melbourne Storm team. Craig Bellamy deciding to rest a whole heap of stars. It was only a 5-day turnaround to head up to Townsville, and they nearly pulled it off. The Cowboys, I think subconsciously, they probably thought they were always going to win the game, and they probably were, but wasn't an overly convincing win by the Cowboys. So I think they'll have a pretty sharp attitude towards the game this week.
Out at the foot of the mountains, the Panthers beat the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and Ivan Cleary, who doesn't usually play the mind games, he came out in the lead-up to this game and questioned the Panthers' desire to go on and win a 4th straight premiership, and Jerome Luai really stepped up on Friday night to guide the team around the park, Bill.
He's had a really good year, hasn't he, Jerome? I think there was a lot of question marks whether he could lead a team. Always played alongside Nathan Cleary, who is the dominant half in whatever team he plays in. But he has really stepped up this year. He's done a wonderful job in the absence of Nathan Cleary, and I think the West Tigers will be really happy with the recruitment of Jerome Luai coming to the club next year. I'm sure Lockie Galvin is as excited as anyone to play alongside him, and he will take the reins next year, I would imagine. So it's great practice for him. They're going along pretty nicely. I think everyone thought Nathan Cleary going down. Everyone's going to get their injuries. It's when you get them, and have the Panthers got them early enough to get their troops back on deck. Edwards is getting a few games under his belt. He's going to be better week after week with that knee injury. So if they can get their full team back on the field, they are right there.
Shane Flanagan stormed out of the press conference. He was very, very disappointed with the Dragons first half. What a strange game. 84 points in this game, and the Dragons scored 5 tries in the last 10 minutes, Bill, but Parramatta got the cash 44-40.
Can you believe it? Can you believe that when they work so hard, the Dragons, the season's been going for 10, 11 months nearly, if you include pre-season. They've worked so hard to put themselves in a position, and then when it's in their control against the team that are fighting for the wooden spoon or to not get the wooden spoon, and they play like they did. It was I don't blame Shane Flanagan for storming out. It was a really disappointing performance by the Dragons, and they'll be the first to admit it. The players, they've let it slip, and they're pretty much out of the Premiership race now. I don't think they can't make finals with the Knights and the Dolphins playing this weekend, unless that's a draw and a lot of other things go their way, which is totally unlikely. They've just fumbled the ball right over the try line. It's a really disappointing weekend for the Dragons.
Yeah, and then the Dolphins, they capitalise. They win this weekend. They play finals footy. They're sitting in 8th spot, and they beat the Brisbane Broncos 40 points to 6, Bill.
Well, the Broncos were in the same position as the Dragons. The Dragons played the game before the Broncos. So you know the result. You know that your future and your season is in your own hands. The Dolphins, they're a good team. They don't beat themselves very often, the Dolphins, and although they had a whole heap of points put on them against the Melbourne Storm the week before, that's very uncharacteristic, to the Dolphins and the way that they've been performing. And what a game this weekend is. This is going to be an incredible game on Sunday afternoon. It'll be live and free on Channel 9. The Dolphins and the Newcastle Knights to play in the semi-finals. The winner goes through to the semi-finals. The loser, they go on holidays. It's an incredible setup for a Sunday afternoon footy. The best way we can finish our season, our round 27. It's going to be incredible up there in the Hunter at McDonald Jones Stadium. So, but yeah, the Dolphins, they take a great form line going into this game, and the Brisbane Broncos, well, it's been a really tough year for them, injury-wise, form-wise. They just haven't captured the form that they presented last year that took them to a grand final.
We then go down to Shark Park. Didn't Sean Johnson turn back the clock in his one of his last games? 30 points to 28, the Warriors beating the Sharks down there in the Shire.
Isn't it great seeing Sean Johnson play the game with a big smile on his face? He is a wonderful player. He's been a wonderful player for 14 years. He's attracted so many people, in particular young people, to the game. We spoke about Benji Marshall the last couple of weeks, given his induction into the Hall of Fame and what he's done for the game in Australia but also in New Zealand. Well, this guy's very much the same. He drags people to the game, and he drags young people to put the boots on and go and have a game and go and step like Sean Johnson. And for him to put that sort of game together, or that sort of second half together, to finish the way that he finished, oh wow, wouldn't that fill you with content and a great way to go out. So there was one little sign in the crowd that sort of grabbed my attention at the end of the game. It was actually from his wife. I think is his wife's name Kayla?
I think
I'm
so.
not sure,
yeah.
But she was in the crowd with a sign, and although Sean Johnson's playing days are over, the sign said, "I still get to play with Sean Johnson." So I thought that took the cake. Very creative, and what a wonderful player. Congratulations, Sean. Been a pleasure to play against you. Been a pleasure to watch you. And on behalf of all of rugby league people, thank you.
Jeez, it sounds like Sean's going to be busy post rugby league days, but anyway, good luck to him.
His playing days aren't over by the sounds of it.
Half his luck. We go to Newcastle and Gold Coast to finish up before we get into some questions of the Billy M Awards. Fletcher Sharp got a hat-trick. Kalen Pong a couple of tries. The Knights beating the Titans at McDonald Jones Stadium.
Fletcher Sharp is a try-scoring machine. You know what? I just love the way he moves. He moves so well. He's quick. He's elusive. He can find space. He's a wonderful player, and he's really adding to this Newcastle Knights team, which we all know that Kalen Ponga holds the key. I love Kalen's involvement in this game, and I think that's what's going to take the Knights forward. If they're going to play semi-final footy like they did last year, it'll be off the back of collective teamwork to get the basics of the game right, and then finding their star fullback in positions. That's the key for the Newcastle Knights. Get a game plan that everyone is involved in and everyone contributes to the simple part of the game, defensively, field position, complete your sets, and then when you get your opportunities, get the ball to Kalen Ponga in his best positions. And that is what they did on the weekend, and he repaid his team. He's a star player. We all know the qualities that Kalen has in his game, and if they can get that right, they'll give themselves a chance. But like I said before, the Dolphins, they're not going to beat themselves.
All right, let's look at round 26 of the regular season. So one more to go, and we'll have a look at the last round a little later in the podcast. You're listening to the Billy Slater Podcast. We do it for Ram Trucks. They eat everything else for breakfast. And Tab, we're on. Gamble responsibly. Rugby league has had its fair share of iconic eras. But honestly, I can't get enough of the high-scoring, line-breaking, flick-passing, magic-rounding, origin drought-breaking, Vegas-flying, simply the best era of footy we're in right now. And with more stats, insights and markets than ever, it's the best time in sport, and Tab has the best app in sport. Tab, we're on. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. We move to the Billy M Awards. This has been very, very popular on the podcast this year. Billy's most impressive team and individual from round 26. Bill, we'll start off with the team that caught your eye over the course of the weekend.
Well, I don't have to look back too far because it is the Canberra Raiders. They were the team of the weekend, and I don't think anyone will argue with that. They took on the Roosters. The Roosters are one of the favourites for the competition coming into this round. We all know the quality that they possess in their team. They're playing exceptional football. Won 8 from their last 9 games. The momentum going into the finals is incredible, with a top 2 spot up for grabs. That was everything to play for the Roosters. But the Raiders, they just came with a game plan that was physical. It was a street fight. And this is what the Raiders are known for. They don't have the top-end talent like some of the other teams, like their opposition yesterday, but they just have this heart, courage, resilience, desire to stay in the tough parts of the game. And I think every Raider, previous player, supporter, they will be super proud of their footy team. I'll just have a look at their key position players. So they went into the game. They've got Jordan Rapana, who only played 11 minutes. So he went off with a fractured cheekbone. So they had to reshuffle their back line. Kyo Weeks and Adam Cook in the halves. And Danny Levi started in the number 9 position. Like with all due respect, it's a very inexperienced key position team. They didn't win the game from brilliant play, brilliant set play. They won it through toughness, grit, and determination to stay in there. And they also went down to 12 men twice. So they played a quarter of the game with only 12 men. So it was an incredible performance. Not just one of the performances of the weekend. It's probably the performance of the year.
Mm-hmm. Wow, okay. We go to the most impressive player in round 26.
Yeah, I just spoke about him before. I think Sean Johnson's the most impressive player. We've had some great players over the weekend, but to be down 22-4 at half-time and to come out and just play with the freedom that he played with in his last game, he really shouldered the responsibility, and I love the way that he went about it. The game was on the line. There was a minute to go. They were 2 points behind, and they had a full set. Sean Johnson had 1 set left in his career, and it was with the football, which is his strength, and he went after it. He spoke after the game about the sequence of plays and the picture that he was trying to create, and I can resonate with this because at the start of your career, and especially when you've got the brilliance like Sean Johnson, you don't really understand why things happen. They just happen for you. And then towards the back end of your career, you start thinking about, okay, well, how did that happen and why did that happen? And then you start creating plays to actually give you that picture more often. And that's what he did in that last set. He actually created the picture that he wanted. He saw it. He went from the left to the right-hand side of the field and then threw a beautiful cutout pass, which that play was already on because of the information that he had in his memory from what was happening earlier in the game. It was just a great way to finish your career because at the start, it's all about your talent and your skill, and things just happen for you because you play to your strengths. Towards the end, you start manipulating the game and start working out why things happen to you and then getting that picture for yourself.
There you go. Okay, fantastic. We go to the listener questions. We've got 2 of them this week. There's a whole heap of them. We had about 400, but we've had to whittle it down to 2 because we're fast running out of time.
Okay.
Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au is the email address, folks. Billy Slater Podcast at 9.com.au. Just drop off sending all those naughty emails through because Billy gets in trouble at home. First one's from Graham. Hey, Billy, what do you make of Tyrone Wishart? He's been one of the most improved players of 2024. I have no doubt he'll play Origin one day. That one from Graham.
Yeah, he's going to get better too, Tyron. He's a wonderful player, but he will get better. This is only pretty much his breakout season. And he's had to do it in a whole heap of different roles, which I think in the long term is going to be beneficial for his development, to understand how they play in the middle of the field at dummy half and to understand the fullback role from wingers to centres. He's played in the halves, so he's well-rounded in understanding all positions, and that'll help him when he finally settles down. And he may never settle down into one position, but if he does, this will help him. This time that he's spending in all different positions at the moment will certainly help him. So he's going to get better. The sky's the limit for him, and he'll get there because he has got a great work ethic. He competes on everything. He's got a lot of energy about him, and he's a really humble, good guy as well. So, got a lot of time for Tyron, and I think the sky's the limit for him.
Comes from good stock too. The great Rod Wishart, one of the greats. And this one from Frankie. Hey, Billy, do you think the NRL should bring back the national youth competition? That's been a bit of talk of that the last week or so. Or do you think it's better for young players to cut their teeth against grown men? That one from Frankie.
This is a tricky one. A part of me loves the national youth competition. I love seeing the young players play, and you get an understanding of who's coming through and who's going to play first grade and all that sort of stuff. And I think that's the good part about it. I don't think when it's under 20s, they're all 18 years old anyway. They're all pretty much younger than that. By the time they get to 20, if they're going to go on, they're probably playing first grade. So they're all very young. The danger with it is when you're an 18-year-old kid and you're still developing and you're coming in, you're playing in the Brisbane Broncos jersey or you're playing in the Sydney Roosters jersey, you're on television. The perception is that you're an NRL player. All right, so, and that's not their fault. I think there was was it 3% or 4% of players that played in the under-20 competition went on to be in the full-time squad of an NRL team. Not in the full-time team, in the full-time squad, 4%. So there's 96% of young guys have that perception as they didn't make it. And when you're playing on TV and all your family, you're wearing the NRL colours and all that, there's a danger in that feeling of failing. So we do have to be careful to not put our young players up on pedestals too early. So that part of me, I'm a little bit cautious of glorifying a young person's competition. Sure, the NRL, that's that front and centre, that spotlight, and you're mostly skilled to handle that. But when they're young and they've just come out of school and they may not make it to the NRL, we've just got to be careful with those kids.
Yep, fair enough too. Rightio, we move to NRLW. Gee, the Sharks are going along nicely. They're 4 points clear on top of the ladder from the Broncos, Knights and Roosters. That's how the ladder looks after the next round of the NRLW, Bill.
Yeah, not too long to go either. Finals just around the corner for the girls, and it's shaping nicely. The Sharks are a team. I called them a couple of weeks ago and just love the way that they use the football. Emma Tonegato's playing well, so they're a serious title contender. But I like the Broncos as well. The Broncos and the Roosters, I think they'll be snapping on their heels.
All right, great stuff. And then round 27, final round of the season. There's a few games with some talking points in this one. You know the one that's interesting. The battle for the wooden spoon, West Tigers and Parramatta. From all reports, it's going to be a sellout. So people love their rugby league, even when there's you're trying to avoid the wooden spoon. But the big one, as you touched on earlier, the Knights and the Dolphins, live and free on 9 Sunday afternoon.
That'll be huge. McDonald Jones Stadium. Andrew Johns' heart rate's already pretty high, so it's going to be a wonderful afternoon of footy, and the winner, they get to play semi-final footy. Well, what a prize. The loser goes on a holiday. And then that game out at Campbelltown, the Tigers have won the last couple of wooden spoons, so there'll be some high motivation to go out there and perform well in that one. And I think there'll be plenty of points scored. So I'm sure the packed out Campbelltown Stadium will certainly get their money's worth.
Awesome stuff. Well done, Billy. Enjoy your week, mate, and we'll see you on the telly later in the week for the final round of the season, and then we're into it, the final series for 2024. Have a great week, mate. We'll catch you soon.
Can't wait. Thanks, Levy.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie and the Owner.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.